You've tuned into Unpause Your Life with Dr. Callie Estes. Your access to success strategies and more to help you move onward and upward with your life. Listen in each week as she interviews others who have really taken their essence to the next level and truly unpaused their life. Now here's your host, Dr. Callie Estes.
Hey everyone, welcome to the show. This is Dr. Callie Estes, and I am founder of the Addictions Academy, the Addictions Coach, and Rehab Rescue. Welcome to Unpause Your Life. This is a great podcast where we showcase people who have done something extraordinary with their life. I welcome you, and I hope you enjoy all of our guests.
On my way, found a reason to wake up another day.
You are listening to Unpause Your Life with Dr. Callie Estes, founder of the Addictions Coach and the Addictions Academy, also known as the Female Dr. Drew. Welcome to my show. I'm very excited to have Erin Wathen on today. She is a health translator and author of Why Can't I Stick to My Diet?, which I'm very excited to talk about because you all know my take on diets and what I think. Erin is a holistic health coach, food abuse counselor, and the inspiring author of Why Can't I Stick to My Diet? How to End the Food Drama. Her philosophy, simply put, health isn't a number on the scale or how often we exercise, but our lives as a whole. Several years ago, she was not at peace with her body, despite her wealth of knowledge on diet and exercise. She was always on a diet and yet never reached her goal weight. It was then that she started her last diet, which ultimately became her food plan and the basis of her health coaching program. She's also a graduate of the Institute of Integrative Nutrition and a food addictions counselor. Welcome, Erin.
Thank you.
So let's talk about this. So I know every woman in America is on some new fandangled diet at all times, because I know in my circle, it's the first question is, oh, what diet are you on? So let's talk about how did we get there? But that is a topic of conversation.
I think we got there because we're always looking for the magic, and we think the magic is going to be something other than eating sensibly, not going to food when we're not hungry, and that there's always an answer to the question of where's the magic? That the answer is it's going to be found somewhere other than dealing with what's going on in our lives, that there will finally be a way in which we can escape in food. And there really isn't ever going to be that special diet, no matter what Instagram tells you, no matter what pictures you see on Pinterest. And it almost becomes a social connector with women of we've all gone to Weight Watchers, we've all done keto, we've all done the cabbage soup diet, if you're old enough to know what I'm talking about.
Oh, I remember the cabbage soup diet. That was disgusting.
Yeah. It was really disgusting. But we all are talking about the details and not the problem. The problem we don't like to talk about because the problem is the real nitty gritty ugly stuff. And that is, quite frankly, we're going to food when we aren't hungry because we don't like something that's bigger in our lives. When it's a lot easier to talk about keto or paleo or whatever was before that I forgot about, or what's ever coming after keto, which you and I both know there's always something after keto. So it becomes a social bonding, and also it becomes bonding when we go off of our diets, right? It's a cheat day. That's what we're calling it this year. So it's cheat days, and then there's also detoxes and resets and whatever the new name is for crash diets. So there's always been crash diets.
I don't have a cheat day. Sometimes I have a cheat week. I tell my trainer. I have a trainer. And I was in LA, and he texted me when I was out there. I was getting ready for a TV show, and he goes, what are you eating? And I'm literally eating a cracker, which to him is a no-no. So I'm like, I'm having a cracker. He's like, is it a cheat meal or a cheat day? I'm like, dude, it's a cheat day. And we just had junk all day long. And he's like, okay, that is no good. So where did that philosophy of I'm going to be good 5 days out of the week or 6 days out of the week, and then Sunday I'm just going to eat garbage all day come from? Where did that come from?
I don't know if anyone will actually take responsibility for that idea, but I do know that it's a really slippery slope, because if you're quote unquote good, what's on the opposite side of good? Bad. And you're, for 6 days or 5 days or whatever your predetermined good phase is, you're probably not eating enough, and you're really looking forward to the bad times, right? Or bad meaning the, good times, whatever you want to look at it. So you're probably dieting or not really eating how you want it to be. And then you saw the cracker and you're like, finally. And whenever we go on that cheat meal, day, week, month, year, not only is it chemically a real burden we're putting on our body, the fat, the processed food, the sugar, psychologically, we're like, oh, these foods are an option again. And even when we decide, okay, that was then, you probably got in a plane to come back to where you are. For the next couple of days, your body was like, wait, where did that instant gratification go? We liked that.
Yeah.
Sugar, the fat and sugar combo. And then psychologically, you're like, wait, crackers are available to me again. I thought we were stuck eating, meat and vegetables. Like what? Like that was fun. Because to you, food and fun were intertwined again. So that's why I really discourage the food idea of cheat days, because it's so much easier if you just sort of work past the idea of food being fun and you try to just look at, food as being food. I'm not saying you eat this miserable diet of, dried out chicken breast and broccoli, but if we stop looking at food to be enjoyment, food to be celebratory, and just sort of look at, let's find a way we like to eat that isn't horrible, but that we can maintain our weight, maintain our mood, satisfies us. We effortlessly can maintain our weight so we can get on with our lives. Because how much bandwidth, emotional bandwidth do we spend obsessing about our weight? I mean, I spent a ton. I used to spend so much time on it that when I stopped doing it, I was able to start a business. So we spend so much time, and I have clients now where, they get close to their weight that they, and I use goal weight loosely as a term, and they start to panic because it's like, well, what am I going to worry about when I get to my weight? And I said, you're probably going to worry about what you should have always been worrying about, what the real problem is, whether it be your mother or your husband, your job, whatever, because it's so much easier to worry about your weight versus your mother or your husband or your job when, it's a lot safer to complain to your girlfriends about the extra 5 pounds versus maybe I'm dating the wrong guy. So
it's interesting that you say that weight is tied to, that's emotional eating. So
totally
eat because I don't like my husband or my boyfriend because it's easier to eat the cake than break up with him.
And then also you have a drama you're okay with managing.
Mm-hmm. But you also have the other side, which is the celebratory. So
totally. I mean, there's 2 ways emotional eating can happen, right? You have emotions, you eat, right? You have emotions, you go to food, whether it be ice cream or whatever. And you also have, you see food, it makes you feel something, right? So you see a piece of cake, it makes you happy. You see a piece of whatever, it makes you happy. So in either direction, food and emotions are intertwined in a very dysfunctional way. So it is so much easier to do a deep dive into a thing of ice cream than to actually sit with the feelings of maybe my boyfriend and I need to break up. So instead, you bring out the ice cream. You don't even realize you're doing it because I used to do it a million times. And then all of a sudden you wake up when you hit the bottom of the ice cream with the spoon. And then you'll have this complete roller coaster freak out about I ate too much ice cream. The world is ending. La 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 la. When's the next spin class? And we're used to that. We're comfortable in that. That's familiar. When's the next soul cycle class? ... Versus, am I really supposed to be with him? This is not good. That's scary stuff. That could involve me making a huge change in my life when I'm so much more comfortable with the ice cream stuff.
Mm-hmm. I talk about that all the time with my clients is because, I do drug and alcohol, but I also do food addiction. And I see a lot of times people get sober and they reach for food and they say, okay, well, at least I'm not doing heroin. I'm eating sugar. And I'm like, well, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Sugar metastasizes like cocaine and detoxes like heroin. So let's have conversation. And they say, well, it's legal. Everything's legal.
Oh. Yep. Somewhere. I mean, when I was writing my book, I went to a lot of OA meetings, and the amount of people that I always refer to it as downshifting, because they used to do heroin, then they did alcohol, and now they were in OA. And yeah, it was socially acceptable to, eat pounds of sugar, and you wouldn't end up in jail, and you couldn't, lose your family. But they were still having that looking for escape thought process. And the idea of not managing their feelings was still there. And the thing is, it's so much more acceptable to eat an entire cake. It just is.
Sometimes. My husband and I have a rule in the house. See, I married the junk food junkie. Like, he could literally eat Burger King, McDonald's, Chick-fil-A, not gain a pound. I pretty much go to the drive-thru and just stick my head out the window and smell the food, and I put on 10 pounds. So we have a rule. He's not allowed to bring the food in the house, because I don't keep that here. Here we have all organic, all clean food, no garbage, no bread, nothing. So I borrowed his car the other day, and and I got in the driver's seat, and I'm like, I smell French fries. And I'm looking around, and I put my hand behind the driver's seat, and it is probably almost a foot deep of just bags of food from stuff he ordered, like Burger King bags and Taco Bell. And yes, I know. Ooh, it's disgusting. I'm like, I called him, and he's like, my car, my rules. I'm like, damn it.
Right.
So that's how we manage my food issue, is he's not allowed to bring it in the house. So let's talk about diet trends. Tell me what you've seen trending wise, because I remember the cabbage soup. I remember the South Beach. I was on that. I never did keto because I'm more like a lifestyle change person, but there's always a trend. Tell me which diets seem to have popularity. Where are we headed as a society? What do you think's happening?
Well, right now I still see a lot of buzz around keto. Yeah, I mean, I think what's always interesting is it's always the celebrities seem to go first, right? You hear celebrities talking about keto, and I don't know if you remember the beginning of the year, Jillian Michaels came out and she was like, I think keto's awful. And then like Al Roker and like someone else, I forget who it was, came out and they were very upset that she said this. And whether or not you like Jillian Michaels or don't like Jillian Michaels, her science was sound.
I like.
And anyone that, me too. I've listened to her speak before. I've seen her in person. I've followed her forever. But as you and I know, and I don't know if many of the audience members know, the reason why a lot of diets always come out as most recommended, the Mediterranean diet is always one of them, is because there's 3 to 5 years of data of people being able to maintain it at home, because all those are self-reported numbers. We don't have 3 to 5 years of data on keto. Well, what that means to me is it's really hard to keep it up at home. Yeah, sure, you can drop 20, 30, 40 pounds, put your pictures up on Instagram or Pinterest, but where are you in 5 years? The deduction everybody makes that knows anything about this is you're back to where you started. Those pictures don't make your social media feed. We don't talk about that. So whenever I hear that there aren't a lot of after pictures that are being shared that are long term, that immediately gets my attention, because we don't just want to lose weight. We can always lose weight. It's the keeping it off that's the really lifestyle change. I mean, losing 10 pounds is not that hard. Keeping it off, changing the way you look at food, having it be a lifestyle change, effortlessly losing it and not making yourself crazy is where the real magic is. Because how many times have we lost weight and been a nervous wreck about it? I used to be afraid to go anywhere because what if there was bread? I mean, that's not living. But, if you think about it, like, we can't do anything about ice cream still being made. There's always going to be ice cream being made. So somewhere right now, ice cream is being made, right? And I can't do anything about traffic. There's always going to be traffic. What can I do something about? The way I look at the world, the way I decide I'm going to be in the world. So that's what we have control over. And if I've decided that I'm someone that doesn't eat emotionally anymore, that I'm not someone that thinks the answer to managing how stressed out I feel about traffic is in a thing of ice cream, that's where the real decision is. That's where the real lifestyle change is. It's not in deciding I don't eat ice cream until I weigh 130, because that's temporary. The real change is in me deciding I don't eat ice cream to smother my feelings anymore, and then not doing it day after day after day. But so many people just don't eat ice cream until they weigh 130.
So let me ask you this question. How many of your clients are able to moderate their use? And what I mean by that is, so we have harm reduction in addiction. I do that specifically with a lot of clients where they don't want to quit alcohol. They want to moderate down. See the client that comes to you and says, well, listen, I don't want to give up bread and I don't want to give up ice cream, but I don't want to have ice cream every night at 10 o'clock while I'm watching reruns of 2.5 Men and Golden Girls. How does that work? And does it work as opposed to you saying, well, it's a trigger for you, so no ice cream at all? How does it work?
What I have them do, if there's someone, first of all, that would be a very interesting conversation to really drill down on why they're even coming to me in the first place. Because it seems like they don't really want it to work. They're already telling you what they're not going to do. You and I both have those 3 clients, right?
Oh, yeah.
But I would just, okay, I'm going to make it so miserable for them to have that ice cream. Because like every bite, I want to hear about it. Every bite, tell me how it feels. Every bite, tell me how it tastes. Every bite, what's going on in your brain. So they can't numb out anymore. The inability to numb out takes the pleasure out of it to them. Because if you turn off the TV, you make them actually look at the ice cream, smell the ice cream, put down the spoon, write a paragraph about it, pick it up again. That will suck all pleasure out of the ice cream in about a day or two. To where, even if they think they wanted it, they're really going to be like, do I have to eat it again? Because
my trainer tried this with me. He tried this with me, and because I'm a foodie, I was like, I can have ice cream every day. He's like, yeah, go ahead, do what you want. And I called him and I'm like, I ate the whole container. He's like, how do you feel? I'm like, fantastic. He's like, you don't feel fantastic. I'm like, well, I feel like shit, but that's beside the point. I said, I feel fantastic because I can have more ice cream. And he looked at me and he goes, that didn't work, did it? I said, no. I said, with me, because once you tell me I can have it, I'm just going to eat it. And I know I can't because I'm a trigger person. If I have one piece of cake, I will eat the entire cake. I don't care if we're at a party. I don't care if I'm home. It's going to happen. It's going down. So I have to restrict sugar from my diet because even one piece leads to disaster. So how do you balance clients that are like that versus the client who's like, well, I can manage this?
Well, I think there's many types of clients. There's many types of clients in which some of them want to lose 5 pounds. Some of them want to lose 50. With me, I always say you can't beat the house when you go to Las Vegas. Just like you can't beat sugar. And very few people I've found can have a slice of cake and not have it impact the rest of their week. Because the next day they're usually thinking about bagels.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Or damages or ice cream. Because you cannot get away from the chemical reaction of the sugar and the flour. That's just a fact. But I do know that there are a lot of people like the way you described where one slice of cake ends up being the whole cake.
Yeah.
And, being able to recognize that, 1 is too many, 100 is not enough, to, quote 12-step programs. And that sugar is very triggering for so many of us, especially if we have had problems with it since we were little kids, like I had. And there's just certain things that I've just sort of chalked up to aren't available to me anymore. And it isn't a moral issue and it isn't a big deal. It isn't because I can't celebrate Halloween. I just don't need to steal my kids' Halloween candy anymore to celebrate Halloween. We can decorate pumpkins and watch scary movies to celebrate Halloween. But for the client who tries to automatically out the gate negotiate with me, I'll definitely try to get him to do the whole, like, take a bite, write it down, take a bite, write it down. And if you get the person ends up eating a whole gallon of ice cream and then tells me what you just said, I know that I have a food addict on my hands and not just a defiant dieter. Cause there's a huge range, a huge spectrum of basically disordered eating, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I've got one client that all she eats is carrots. And I said to her, do you know how much sugar is in carrots? Because she's so afraid of eating sugar. She's like, well, I'll just eat carrots. And because Steve Jobs.
Carrots are sugar.
Right. And I said, where'd you get that idea? She said, well, Steve Jobs ate that for cancer. And I'm like, and Steve Jobs is dead. So
right.
where?
Steve Jobs died of cancer, pancreatic cancer.
Yeah. And she's like, well, I'm just going to eat that. And I said, it's so full of sugar. And then she goes, well, then I'm just going to eat fruit. I'm like, what kind of fruit? She goes, bananas and grapes. I'm like, they have the most sugar in them. And she just looked at me and I'm like, how about we do chicken, broccoli, rice? Let's balance it a little bit.
Yeah, let's balance your macros. How's her health?
Horrible. She's got MS. And I sent her to a naturopath because she wouldn't listen. And I said, you need to go to a naturopath that gives you supplements and foods you can eat and foods that are not good for you and inflammatory foods and blah, blah, blah. And you need to stick to the diet. And she came back in tears and she's like, there's nothing for me to eat. And I said, the diet's phenomenal. It's absolutely phenomenal. There's no gluten. There's no sugar. It's lean meats, proteins, rice, and vegetables. That is perfect. Like everything is there is perfect. And she's like sobbing that I can never have Ben and Jerry's again. I just looked at her and I'm like, listen, you'll be fine without Ben and Jerry's. Trust me.
Yeah, but what you do get is you get to have your mobility back. You can have your life back. You can have brain fog will go away. I mean, let's think about what you do get to have versus what you don't get to have. And you've had a Ben and Jerry's, let's face it, probably for 5 lifetimes.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Glasses half full.
So tell me about your book. What made you write this book? Because you have personal experience with food addiction and dieting and all this stuff. What made you sit down and say, I want to put something out there to help other people?
A couple things. First of all, I really wanted to write the book that I would have wanted to have had because there really wasn't anything that I found that there was someone that I could relate to that put it in a very user-friendly way. It was a lot of either purely anecdotal from someone that just didn't have any real science behind them, or it was just science. And I was like, well, I don't want to hear that much about, molecules and stuff. Like that was just way too science. So someone that could speak to me, that's sort of like hybrid of both. Mm-hmm. And I didn't want to be on a diet for the rest of my life because that's just depressing because, and I just knew mentally, like, for every diet, there's the undiet.
Right.
And I had started my path of getting a lot of education, even though I have a master's degree in sociology, undergrad in sociology and master's in human resources. I had just started to get my nutrition and food addiction and life coaching and all the the real stuff I use every day with my clients, that kind of education, because that's different than, benefits and employee relations. It's a different skill set completely. So I wanted to be able to explain it to basically like a girlfriend and in a very user-friendly way, but also in a let's cut the crap sort of a way, because oftentimes people only hear what they want to hear. But I'm very much, cheat days don't work because you're just reintroducing it. You wouldn't tell an alcoholic you can only drink on your birthday. Mm-hmm. You just wouldn't. Or on Fridays. Or on the weekends. You can drink on the weekends. I mean, yeah. No, of course not. Or on Christmas. But that's what we tell people that have problems with sugar. That was the first reason. Second reason was I knew women would read things on an e-reader they might not read, say, on the subway after the 50 Shades of Grey phenomenon. Because I remember they were saying how, there were a lot of, reasons why that book did so well, some of them kind of raunchy, but one of the main ones that they were attributing it to was the rise of the e-reader, in which you could be at soccer or on the subway or whatever, and no one would have any idea what you were reading. Mm-hmm. And that really interested me because you did have that privacy finally. And I'm not saying every single person on the subway is reading 50 Shades of Grey, but you can read things now with a little more discretion than you used to be able to. So if you don't want to pick up the paperback that's bright blue and says, why can't I stick to my diet? There's always the Kindle or, iPad option. I thought those two together would definitely, expand my range. And also just because there's a lot of people that don't even know what the problem is. They just know that they've been in a diet since they were 14, like I had been, and they're really tired of it. And where is that magic? Where is it? And the reality I had to come around to finding out, and I know a lot of other people that I've, worked with or met since, is that the only shortcut is to stop looking for it. It's the only thing that works, is to just stop trying to find the workaround. Mm-hmm. And it's not very glamorous, and I'm not going to sell a lot of special food in the grocery store, but just realizing that, like, you can't look for the magic, because there isn't any magic other than knowing you just need to eat right, and find the place where you can be okay with not eating what everyone else is eating. And I'm not saying you have to be a miserable cow at dinner parties and tell everyone what they're eating is going to kill them, because nobody likes that person. Don't be that person. But being okay with not celebrating with food when everyone else is, or being okay with, maybe doing things a little bit differently this year, at Christmas than you did last year, and knowing that your kids are still going to have a good Christmas, because they don't really care what you're eating. No one really cares what we're eating. We think they do, but they really don't. I used to think my kids would care so much if I didn't eat ice cream. They just care if they get to eat ice cream.
Well, that's the me-centric society. So as long as I'm taken care of, I don't care what you do. Or if you're going to eat garbage, don't bring it in the house. I say to my husband, and he does it in the car. Until it affects me, I don't care.
Totally. But I had convinced myself that if I didn't eat ice cream, my kids are going to be missing out and have this horrible childhood. And then I realized they didn't care at all what I did, as long as they had access to ice cream.
Yeah, absolutely. And so more for them. If you're not eating it, more for me.
But the thing is, too, what they don't realize is their ice cream opportunities have dwindled down to next to nothing, because I'm not looking for them. But my thing is, as a mom, for example, we think there's all these sacrifices we're making for our children, and we're just, forcing, being forced to eat junk. No, let's stop lying to ourselves, ladies. We're choosing to eat ice cream, just like we're choosing to eat half the dough when we make cookies.
I started using recipes that about 15 years ago that are similar but not the same. Like, my big thing was, I love cake. I love cheesecake. So cheesecake is horrible for you. And there's nothing good in cheesecake whatsoever. So I started looking for ways to make, like, cheese pie. So I found, like, a cream cheese, Cool Whip kind of a thing. And I would tell myself, this is cheesecake. And I would eat it. And I would start getting my friends and family on it. Like, this is healthy cheesecake. And I'll never forget, at Christmas time, I went home to visit my family. We're Italian. So, Italians, lots of food, lots of garbage food. And I brought in cheese pie. And everyone looked at me like I was crazy. What is this? This is not cheesecake. I said, just taste it. Everybody hated it. But I at least got them to try it. Now, fast forward now, that's all they make. Because they can have, they don't feel guilty anymore. And they don't, they see better results with it. So I think little changes are good. And I think, if we just start with something, instead of ice cream, try this, try that, we can shift our thinking on what we need. So now if I eat Ben & Jerry's, it's too sweet. I can't do it. It's gotten to the point where, ice cream for me is like 2 bananas and some coconut milk and a little bit of vanilla in the Vitamix. And I blend it all together, and it's like kind of like ice cream, but it tastes like ice cream. That's ice cream now, as opposed to stuff in the store. So I think we can do those kinds of things. What would you tell our listeners if they're listening? Give them some takeaways. What are some things they can do today to start coming off the roller coaster diet, or getting in a different frame of mind, or just changing up their behavior?
I always tell people to just really be aware, especially, we're in the summer, and, which always leads to the fall, which leads to Christmas. This is kind of a year-round advice. Just really be aware of how often you're celebrating with food. And I know we're a very social society. You have your cheesecake with your Italian family, and every family has their equivalent of cheesecake. But, in the summer we have barbecues, and, we have football in the fall, and Christmas we have, whatever. But just how often you're celebrating with food. And I'm not saying you can't have that 4th of July special cake, but do you have to have the cake in order to have the 4th of July? You really don't, because it will still be the 4th of July if you don't have a big old slab of that Jell-O cake. You can still have fireworks. You can still have, lightning bugs or whatever you always do, but you don't have to have the big piece of cake, which gives you the stomach ache. That's not part of the tradition, even though you've always done it. So just be aware of how many stories you're telling yourself about food and holidays and celebrations. Cause like the thing with the ice cream, that was a story I told myself involving food and celebrating the summer with my kids. That was complete and utter nonsense. And we do that a lot. Like it's not Christmas unless we make grandma's, cheese ball or whatever it is. It's still Christmas.
Oh no.
It's still Christmas.
No, wait. So my grandmother, it wasn't just cheese ball. We had cheese ball and then we had, cause I have one side's Italian, one side's Polish and Slovak.
Oh gee.
Yeah. So we didn't make cookies for the holiday. We made cookies in December 1st for the entire month, for the entire town. I mean, we had like dozens in plastic containers. My grandmother would break out this special Tupperware. Like we had special Tupperware for this. Yes. And the cutout cookies. We had one big thing of just reindeer and then one of like Christmas balls and one of something else. And then it was chocolate chip and oatmeal raisin and then the little peanut butter things with the Hershey Kiss. And it was just dozens and dozens and dozens starting December 1st. So at one point I was eating cookies for breakfast because there was no breakfast. We were making cookies 24/7. I don't know what we were doing it for, but we did. So we had all these freaking cookies all the time. And then when I moved out, guess what? No cookies.
What? Yeah.
I lost weight. And I called my mom and I'm like, Mom, I lost weight. She's like, well, you need to come home then. No, I don't. You people are crazy. I'm not coming over there.
Yeah, it's where all the cookies are. No, but my point to you is like, it was still Christmas even though you weren't eating cookies for breakfast.
Exactly. But to her, back then, it wasn't. Cause, and I finally got her to break that tradition. Because I said, what are you doing? Like, who is eating all this garbage? We, us. Because it's us. And then she would always say, well, what if someone comes over? I'm like, you don't need 500 cookies if someone comes over.
Well, also, are 500 people coming over and demanding cookies?
In her mind, yes. In my mind, I'm like, no, we don't have that.
And also, my thing is like, if they come over unannounced, they don't get any cookies as punishment for coming over unannounced, but I mean, my grandmother grew up in the South and there was always the, what if someone comes over thing, only with that, it was like a pie.
Uh-huh.
So you always had to have a pie and it was like, well, who ends up eating the pie? It's not these mysterious unnamed guests that never show up. It's us.
I have a rule here in my house. I don't feed you. So if you're coming over, you're not getting snacks, you're not getting hors d'oeuvres, you bring food with you. Because if you come here, I guarantee you what I have to eat, you won't want, which is chicken, rice, and broccoli. And people always say, what do you have for a snack? I'm like, a snack is a dessert. So you can have peppers and hummus. That's a snack. Like, I don't want that. Where's your chips? And we don't have that. That is not in my house. So most people avoid coming over, which is totally fine. I don't have to entertain them.
Well, you're also not encouraging strays.
That's true.
Yeah, I know. I think that's just a generational family thing of like, we gotta have food and, it's like the whole thing with the stories, right? That was a story we told about food. That was, who ends up eating the cookies? Not these unnamed people that don't show up. It was your family that was eating them for breakfast for weeks on end. By the end, they were stale and you were still eating them. And you couldn't throw them out because grandma made them. You know what I mean? Let's face it, these cookies were just put in your freezer.
Well, exactly. And I started sneaking them out of the house and giving them away because it got to the point where I'm like, this is ridiculous. Like the amount of cookies we have. And this all started because they did that stupid where they bake cookies and they go to church and they all exchange a dozen cookies thing.
Of course.
Right?
Of course. Church potlucks, of course.
Oh, so it started like that. And my mom came home one day with all these cookies and I was like, there's 3 of us in the house. We have enough cookies for the entire town. Why? And she's like, oh, well, because we all like to bake. I'm like, no, we all don't like to bake. So
the thing about those is that such a tradition and it seems so real. Like I grew up going to church and I remember the church potlucks and the big giant Pyrexes and your mother would write your last name on it and a Sharpie and the whole thing. And I just remember my stomach would always hurt after them, but like every first Sunday of the month you'd go and it was all this weird food and just, why did we do that? I mean, really? But we always did it. So just to circle back to what you were saying, like, celebrating with food, just be aware if you're doing that. Secondly, if you can close your kitchen, meaning stop eating, earlier the better. Like, meaning if you can eat dinner at 6, eat dinner at 6, and just you're done for the day. If that means you're so bored you go to bed at 9, even better. But the later we eat and then we keep eating, and the next thing you know, our sleep is disrupted, and on and on and on and on. The next day we're tired, our hormones haven't been recalibrated because we didn't get enough sleep. It can create a whole bunch of problems. So the first domino of the good habits, so like I would say, is just stop eating after dinner versus, being a free for all, for 3 or 4 hours, because we really have not gotten the sleep thing down yet. And a lot of it comes down to screens. We have screens on all the time. And a lot of us like to zone out with food in front of a screen, which is a very bad habit, but, just something to think about. So that'd be my second tip for your listeners.
Those are great. Those are great ideas, because the mindless eating, I see that all the time. I go to Starbucks or to a restaurant and everybody's on their phone and they're just eating whatever's in front of them. And our portion size in America is nowhere near what it needs to be. It's huge. And if you're on your screen playing on Facebook or doing whatever, you're not looking at your food. You're not even enjoying your food. You're just inhaling your food. Yeah.
And it's so easy to do, especially when you aren't even looking at it. You're just sort of like a cow, just kind of like grazing. I've been there, like we've all been there. And then lastly, like just, do not drink your calories. Stay away from those smoothies, stay away from the kombucha, stay away from all that stuff. Like really try to drink water and tea and black coffee, because when we don't chew our calories, when we don't have that whole, digestion process, it's really easy just to get away from proper digestion. But I know a lot of people love the frappuccinos and the shakes and those crazy milkshakes that are really popular that my kids love to eat once in a while when I let them. And it's a really easy way to just drink a lot of high fructose corn syrup in a short period of time. And that also includes those smoothies there's a lot of national chains. I did this presentation once where I showed 2 nutrition labels, and they were each for 16-ounce drinks. And I think it was something like each one had 25 grams of quick acting carbs. One had 2 grams of fiber. The other one didn't. One was a Coke, and the other one was one of them was a Jamba Juice. I forget which one. So just because it's sort of healthy, it's like the same way we used to think of frozen yogurt. Those smoothies can definitely jack up your blood sugar, and what comes up must come down, especially if there isn't any protein, fat, or fiber to slow it down. And we think it's healthy, but it really isn't if you know anything about it.
Right. Wow. These are great takeaways. And how can our audience find you if they have more questions or they want to buy the book or maybe get a session for food coaching? Where can they reach you?
Sure. My website is Erin Wathen Wellness, just like it sounds.
Okay, perfect. And we'll put all of that up on our website so that they can reach out to you. And is your book on Amazon?
It is on Amazon and BarnesandNoble.com.
Perfect. So we'll get that all taken care of, and they can reach out to you, purchase the book. And thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.
Awesome. And you have been listening to Unpause Your Life with Dr. Callie Estes and my guest today, Erin, the food addiction coach. And you can reach out to her and get a copy of her book. And we will see you guys soon. Have a great day. Hey, everyone. Thanks again for listening. I really hope you enjoyed the show today. Head on over to iTunes and Apple Podcasts and leave a comment or review of what you think. Or contact us at 1-800-706-0318. If you want to be on our show, feel free to email or call. And if you have a topic, feel free to email or call as well.
Thanks for listening to Unpause Your Life. For show notes and more, head on over to unpauseyourlife.com.
Big shout out to recoveryinnovators.com for help producing this show. Thank you, guys.
Took a walk down the long road where they said that I shouldn't go. On my way found a reason to wake up another day. But they needed to show you all the things that you won't do. Find faith or religion, but nothing to show for it. No need to escape in love with my pain. I may be awake, but I'm alive, still alive, and I won't be bound by your mistake. No, I won't be your enemy, trapped at the gate. Bring me to life, put me to death. Just give me something that's just not so hard to believe. To believe. To believe. I took a walk down the dark road where they said that I shouldn't go. I knew the dangers of flying. Now I'm so far from